My name is Sin, and this is the first entry to this old diary that I found. It has been 3 weeks since the Empire sacked our farm. There was no way we could pay those taxes. The slave farms are growing with each passing day. As normal farmers in the desert, life was already rough without them. But the situation just keeps getting worse. My parents tried to defend us, but they took their lives without even flinching. My sister and I tried to help them, but they put us both in shackles and moved us to a slave camp named Vessel that lies between Stout and Chopatai. They barely give us enough food to keep us alive and to make us work daily in the mines. At last I had Suri by my side. She was the last glimmer of hope, until they transported her off to a slave farm. Thankfully, another slave, a friend I would call him, a former Zen ninja with the name of Mirosaki, got deported alongside her. Since we came here, he helped us and he showed us how to pick a lock and snatch an extra meal here and there. In the last brief moment, he assured me that he will protect her and that he will get us both out of slavery. But I cannot wait. I am writing this diary as the start of my new life, a new journey if you will, but not as a slave nor a farmer. I refuse to keep on living like this. I heard the rumors. More and more peasants are revolting against the Empire, and the anti-slavers attacked the camp yesterday. The slaves that got relocated from there told us. I have to get out of here. I don't know where my path will lead me, but today I will prepare my escape and look for my sister. I have finally escaped my jailers, but they won't stay put, and I have to keep my head low to not attract too much attention. The desert is a dangerous place, and without a home, I have to keep moving on. In the night, I made it to a way station near the Black Desert City. The good old times when my family and I had a rest over here. Suri, I need to find you. I hope that Mirosaki keeps you safe. After a night's rest, I roamed around the way station, collecting valuables and perfecting my skills. I need money to buy myself better equipment, and worst case scenario, I need to bribe a few guards here and there. A few days in, I got used to my surroundings. I know that next to the way station are the mechanical hivers and another slave camp. Going back into the wolf's den after escaping a week ago? I must be crazy. But if Suri is in there, I have to find her. I climbed over the camp's walls when nighttime approached and looked around the cages. But after hours of avoiding the guards and asking around the slaves, I knew she wasn't in here. But all those poor souls, I couldn't just let them stay here. But right now, I can't free them all. But there was one who I could not leave behind. It was a female Scourgelander, and she reminded me of my sister. I broke her out of the cell, and together we managed to run back to the way station. As I brought her some food, she thanked me and told me about herself. Her name is Slink, and she was originally from the Holy Nation and enslaved in Rebirth. But one day she managed to escape and decided to join the Shinobi Thieves. But after a failed heist on a noble, she was put back into slavery. Until, well, I got her out of there. She promised to help me on my way, and I think it is not bad to have some company at last. I need to train my combat skills now. Times are changing, and so must I. The last week was rough. Slink and I have been constantly training our skills. At one point, I nearly got captured by the slavers, but Slink saved me. We are making a great team, and after a long time, I finally feel happiness again. Every night we sit at the campfire and talk about the slaves that are still trapped inside of the camps. Slink raised a good point. If we can free more of them, it will become easier for us to find my sister. I already know that she is not in the camp near the way station, but there is a slave camp farther up north, and this could be it. We spent the following day training our skills and preparing for nighttime. As the sun started to fall, we moved to the northern slave farm. Together we climbed over the wall and started looking for Suri, but we did not find her. Damn it. Slink saw my frustration. She reassured me that we will find her. I am glad to have Slink by my side. There is no time for self-pity. It is time to free some slaves. Together we were able to get 2 slaves out of the cages. We brought them to the walls and lowered them down, and so we were able to sneak out of the slave farm. On our way back to the way station, we stumbled upon a hive soldier who was in bad shape and on the brink of starvation. The marks on his body clearly indicated that he was a former slave. With nowhere to go, he pleaded to join us. I can't let this soul starve in the desert, so we took him with us. Back at the way station, we shared food with the former slaves and let them introduce themselves. The Shag's name is Sulfur. Sulfur prefers to use ranged weapons over melee ones, and because of that he was exiled from the Shag Kingdom. Living in the outskirts, he managed to survive on his own, until one night he was assaulted in his sleep and enslaved. They brought him to the United Cities, where he was waiting for a chance to get out of prison and take revenge on his jailers. The Hive soldier is named Les, a former soldier in the Western Hive who was expelled after he failed to protect the caravan. Roaming the land, he was eventually captured by some slavers and on his way to a mining camp. But a group of skimmers took out the slavers and he was able to escape. But the harsh desert left him starving, until he ran into us. And the Greenlander is named Abrarius, a man towering over the others, yet he did not speak, a mute that only communicated through signs. When I asked him where he came from, he pointed to the stars. I don't know what his plans are, but it seems like he wants to join us. With our squad growing, it is time to get us more gear, weapons and money. I have no time to rest. Where to next, leader? Sulfur yelled in my direction while he was dusting off a crossbow he found on a bandit. It feels awkward, being called a leader. After all, I am just, or rather was, a normal farmer. But Slink reassured me that I fit perfect into this role. And well, as long as it helps us, I will try my best to keep everyone safe. The last days we spent on fighting the local bandits, increasing our combat abilities, making some cats here and there. Sadly, in one of those battles, Cyberbeep lost a leg. Yet the mechanical hive was able to make him a replacement. I am starting to get used to my new companions. We make a great team together, and this was necessary, as the next target has been marked. Les has shown me another location of a slave camp close to Trader's Edge. Maybe this time we are lucky and I can find Suri. We move towards our target and set up a camp close to it. Slink and I will move in while the others wait on the outside to cover our backs. They are still not skilled enough to climb over the wall, and I can't risk us getting caught. As nighttime approached, our mission began. As usual, we sneaked around the guards and looked for Suri, and after hours it seemed like it was all in vain again. Until a shack changed my fate. As I mentioned Suri's name, his eyes widened and he nearly started yelling. I had to call him down so the guards didn't hear us. He knew Suri. He promised me to explain everything, but we need to get out here first. I opened his cage and brought him to the escape point. Soon after, Slink showed up with 2 more escaped slaves at her side, but this time we made a mistake and they saw us. We quickly moved down the walls and started running. Thankfully, in the cover of the night, we were able to escape. I have to be more careful in the future. In the morning, we arrived back at the way station, where I paid for a couple of beds and warm food, and then we sat together. First, I want to hear the story of the shack. I want to hear what happened to Suri. Argus Chainbreaker, this is his name. A proud and strong shack warrior from the Shack Kingdom that fought against the Holy Nation on many fronts. But at one fateful day, he got betrayed by the Shack themselves. As he stood his ground in a battle, some other cowards deserted. He was able to survive and made it back victoriously, but the deserters told lies and marked him as a coward, even for his parents. As a former battle brother, and even worse, one of the deserters tried to cut his horns. He impaled him and took his life. Even though he fought bravely, the guards of Atmak put him down and imprisoned him. For his bravery, they refused to cut his horns, but for killing 100 Guardian, he was sent into exile. Since then, he has been living on the outskirts, until he was able to join up with a group of manhunters, only to become a slaver. That was until he met Suri. Her beauty and kindness changed his mind. One could say he fell in love, and he started to favor her. Ultimately, he decided to free her, but his plan failed and they were caught. To add insult to his injuries, they sent her off to another slave camp farther up north. I could sense that the group wasn't very fond of a former slaver, but for treating Suri well, I will forgive him. He swore allegiance to my cause and that he won't rest until she is safe. I'll make sure to remind him when the time comes. Yet there were 2 more slaves that made it out of the camp. One of them is a hive prince with the name of Manu, a former chef in Shobotai who created a foul meat restaurant, yet people were not fond of his cooking. After failing to pay rent, he became homeless and started to roam the desert with his crossbow. But after getting knocked out by a skimmer, the slavers took him and brought him to the mines. Since then, he has been waiting for a way out. Manu was very thankful for his freedom. He promised to cook for the group in the future. Well, let's see if his food is edible at last. And the other one is a hive drone with the name of Rang, a short little fellow suffering from memory loss after getting hit on the head. The only thing he remembers are the years he spent in slavery. After I bought him the food, I could see how happy he was. I will make sure that I protect him. It is good that we keep growing, but this way station surely becomes small at one point, and the risk of us being seen here is increasing with everyone that joins us. I need to find a better place soon. I had a dream last night, maybe a memory from the past. My family and I were at the beach, enjoying the breeze from the cold sea, when suddenly I turned around and saw my parents' lifeless bodies on the ground, and in a blink of an eye my sister was gone, and I was standing there, alone. This woke me up in an instant, and I knew that I wasted too much time in this way station. I gathered my companions and told them about my new plans. It is time to move up north, and we have to look for Suri. The training has made everyone tougher, but many of us have lost a limb along the way. And before we started to move up, we bought a security spider from the hive. This is an easy way to carry our goods. Then we started our long journey over the dunes, yet it was dangerous. But after a day of marching, we reached the northern part of the Great Desert. The reason why we moved along the border of Sinkun were rumors about the renegades and the rebel farmers. And they were right. The renegades granted us shelter, but the rebel farmers were a different topic. Although I share the same fate as them, they were more hostile. As I came closer to the hideout, it became clear to me that we are not welcome. Yet I was able to talk my way into the base and met Boss Simeon. A farmer at heart, but a broken man that lost a lot. To prove my worth, he wants me to punch a noble. Honestly, I would have done it for free. As we regrouped in front of the rebel base, we moved closer to Port North. Yet, we avoided the northern hive. They are not very fond of anything that is not a hiver. At nighttime, we reached the walls of the slave camp, and this time we had a plan. We had to do it safer. I can't risk us getting caught here. So again, Slink and I moved in while the others made sure to secure our escape. And then the great search began. Although I did not find Suri, I found Mirosaki. Yet he was in a bad shape, beaten down by the slavers, nearly crippled. As I tried talking to him, he didn't respond. Clearly, he was at the brink of death. I unlocked his cage and brought him to the others. Slink was also not able to find Suri, but this time we will free more slaves. In total, we were able to get 5 out of here. But it's getting daytime and the guards are getting suspicious. But this mission was a total success. We moved away from the slave camp towards the hideout of the renegades. Since we were the enemies of Emperor Tengu, they granted us shelter. After a day of rest, Murasaki regained his consciousness, and as he saw me, he uttered an apology. He tried to free Suri, but Lord Nagata has taken her. Nagata, the noble of Shopatai? After all, we have to go into the wolf's den now. I thanked Murasaki and brought him to the others. It was now time to get to know everyone. Murasaki is a sand ninja that led countless raids on the United Cities, until one day they were overwhelmed by the samurais and he was captured and sent to a vessel. This was the place where Suri and I met him. Murasaki showed us many things and he helped us to survive the camp. And after they got sent off, he looked out for my sister. I'm forever indebted to him and I will make sure to pay him back. Then we have a Southern Hive Prince with the name of Kane. Kane was fighting some wild animals for the hive until he got hit on the head, which severed his connection to the queen. Disoriented, he started wandering around until some manhunters captured him. Another freed slave was something I've never seen before, a huge hive soldier calling himself Leader Green, a chosen elite trooper from the Hive Queen, but through an unfortunate event he was severed from the queen and enslaved. For 10 years he has been working for the slavers, gentle in nature, but whenever he saw that slaves got treated unfairly, he stepped in to help them. Because of that, he was kept on a small leash, as he had incredible strength. Now I gotta see if he's willing to use it for us. Another one, a man named Andy, a former anti-slaver and freedom fighter. He was sent out on a mission to assault a slave camp, but his squad was ambushed by the samurais. He fought bravely, but eventually they were overwhelmed. Andy was the only survivor, and to mock him, they threw him into a prison and wanted to starve him out. Thankfully, we saved him before that. And the last one, a hive prince with the name of Ultra Biscuit, a very curious hiver, larger than most princes and with an abnormal head. According to him, he was dropped as a baby. His clumsiness eventually got him expelled from the hive. Wandering the desert, slavers took him in and made him work the mines, yet he saw them as friends and not enemies. But when Slink let him out of his cage, he was overjoyed and followed her. With so many new members, the battles will become easier, but I gotta make sure to feed everyone and keep them safe. With the help of the renegades, I might be able to assault some samurais. Shopatai, a city full of greed and corruption. I've been here for a few times, trading with the townsfolk. This was back in the old days. Now I see it as a fortress I have to overcome, but breaking into the noble's house seems impossible. Day after day I try to find a weak spot, but this noble is guarded well. I can't risk it. I have to lay low and wait. I can stomach this feeling. Suri, do not worry. We will come for you. After another nightly adventure with Slink, we came back to our little hideout in Shref. While we were gone, the group has been training and preparing for our assault on Shopatai. Through sheer luck, we were able to assault another caravan of the Traders Guild. A pack animal full of food will fill our bellies for a long time. Mirosaki has meanwhile forged an alliance with the shinobi thieves. With their network across the cities, we will be able to get information that we can use later. He also mentioned that he is working on getting a hand on his former boss from the Sand Ninjas. We need all the help we can get. Furthermore, it has become quite hard to break into the slave camps. Our mission have caused an increase in security, which means we have to find another way to free more slaves for our cause. Thankfully, I can rely on my team, as Argus has shown us another way of strengthening our group. A lot of times the slavers relocate the inmates, and we just need to wait for a moment like this. We didn't waste much time. We packed our things and moved close to Wessel. Wessel, the place that chained me for so long. Seeing these walls still makes me feel sick. We waited through the night, and as the morning arrived, it started. And indeed, we were in luck. As the gates opened, a group of slavers moved out with some inmates. We waited patiently, and as they moved away from the camp, we started our assault. With our combined forces, we swept them away without any trouble. Leader Green, the huge Hive Praetorian, and Argus made a perfect team when it came to protecting the squad. As the dust settled, we freed the slaves and brought them back to Shraf. Truly a day to celebrate. After giving them some food and checking their injuries, we let them introduce themselves. The first one is a Shek warrior with the name of Nibel. Nibel is the son of a Shek hero, claiming to be the nephew of the stone golem. Even though Nibel is strong, he is also a very stubborn Shek. So after a successful battle against a skin spider, he formed a group and assaulted the Holy Nation. But they were defeated. And in this battle, he lost his arm. But worse than that, his fiancée named Drakar got enslaved and taken away. He eventually got knocked out and was sent to the mines. And after some trading, he ended up in the Great Desert. Until, well, we freed him. He swore revenge on his enemies and loyalty to us. Then we have a skeleton marauder with the name of Amber. She did not say too much and has acted rather quiet, but she thanked us for freeing her and mentioned that she has no place to go, so she will help us to free my sister. I thanked Amber and welcomed her to the group. Right next to Amber was a Shek woman with the name of Angela Death. Angela knew quite a lot from me. She knew about my sister and about who we are. It turns out that she wanted to meet us and inform us about the rebel farmers, but on her way to our group, she was caught by manhunters and enslaved. She thanked us for freeing her and offered to join us. She will also help us to better our relation with the rebels. I thanked Angela and welcomed her to the group. Endorio is the name of the Hive Prince that was sitting right next to Angela. Sent into the burning forest in search of valuables for the queen, he was eventually cut off from the hive. Disoriented, he wandered the plains until he got caught in a battle between the United Cities and the Holy Nation. In the end, he was enslaved by the Empire and sent to the mines until we freed him. Then there was Mohi, a fierce Southern Hive prince and a former commander in the Queen's army. But after an ambush from the Reavers, he got knocked unconscious. He was eventually enslaved and ended up in the hands of a Shek noble. One night, he took out the Shek and 2 of his guards. He then escaped into the desert, but he was eventually caught by manhunters. Since then, he has been waiting for an opportunity to get revenge on the Reavers. I am not very fond of the Reavers myself, so maybe one day I can help him with this. And at last, a Greenlander with the name of Zammel, a man who shares my fate, a former fisher that lost his village to the high taxes of the Empire. He joined the rebel farmers, but with his squad he was defeated by the United Heroes, and he was later sold into slavery. Zammel thanked us for freeing him, and he will also help me to get a better relation with the rebel farmers. With so many new people for our cause, I'm confident that we can break the walls and free my sister. Just wait, Suri. I will come for you. The brother of Lord Nagata, Dono. I cannot believe I'm getting myself involved with him. A few nights ago, when I was sneaking around Shobotai, I met a skeleton named Joseph. Alongside my sister, he is a slave of Lord Nagata, and he has plans to get out Suri. Dono had a falling out with his brother, and now he wants revenge for that. I really do not want to work together with a man like him, but it has to be done. An assault on Shobotai is impossible. Even if we succeed, most of my men will die. So the plan goes as follows. Dono will distract most of the noble guards. His brother has a hatred for him, and as soon as he shows up, Nagata will send his guards after him. In this moment, some of us will move in. Joseph will open the door to the noble's house, and then Suri will be free. But this comes with a price. Dono wants his brother dead, and I don't know if I can manage to do this. At least, not now. So eventually, I have to get back to Shobotai after all. I gathered everyone around me and told them my plan. A group will stay out and prepare for our escape, and some of us will move in and break them out. I saw the fear in the eyes of my companions, but also hope. We ate the last meal together, and then our mission began. Near the walls of Shobotai, we gathered and moved into position. It didn't take long until we heard some loud noises and saw Dono fleeing the city, with a bunch of noble guards behind him. We climbed over the walls and quickly moved to the noble's house. Joseph, alongside my sister and some other slaves, came rushing out. The moment I saw Suri, she jumped onto me and gave me a hug that felt like it lasted for ages. Happiness. This was the feeling that I missed. But we didn't have time. We had to... Suddenly, I felt a force pushing me. As Suri loosened up her grip on me, and suddenly I felt a bolt stuck in her back. Lord Nagata was screaming for his guards as he loaded another bolt into his crossbow. We had to move out of here. I threw my sister over my shoulder, and together with the others we climbed down the wall. We ran towards our hideout as fast as our feet could take us. I immediately tended to Suri's wounds. I removed the bolt and used the best medicine that we could find. As I was kneeling by her side, her hand slowly moved towards my face, and she uttered, "I have missed you, brother." Then her hand dropped. I started to call out her name, but no reaction. I started to feel her pulse, but there was nothing. She was gone. I cried. I don't know how long. Days could have been hours. Hours could have been minutes. What brought me back to reality was a hand on my shoulder. As I looked behind me, I saw Slink, her face expressing sadness, and all the others were standing behind Slink. The face of everyone was clear. They all felt like me, pure sadness. But there also was hatred. The nobles, they took everything from me. So now I will take everything from them. We buried my sister near the beach, a place she loved. For her sake, I would set the Empire ablaze. With Joseph, there were also a few more recruits. It is now time to listen to their story. Joseph is one of the oldest skeletons and the former leader of the Great Library, his brain being connected to its network. With this connection, he was able to control the thralls and security spiders, and his knowledge stretched far beyond human comprehension. But on a fateful day, he was ambushed by the Holy Nation, and no matter how hard he fought, their sheer numbers overwhelmed him in the end. Believed to be dead, the Holy Nation left him in this place, only to be captured by some slavers. He survived, but lost his connection to the Great Library, and also his purpose. Since then, he has been serving the nobles as a slave, until we met. I hold Joseph in high regards as he befriended Suri, and I hope I can do the same with him. Then a Greenlander with the name of Relic was also under the slaves. Relic never cared much for the great powers of this world. As a member of the Traders Guild, he only focused on his duties, relaying scrolls and letters throughout the guild's headquarters. One day, though, he was tasked to move towards the Storm Coast, probably because some noble was fanboying over some legendary hunter. But this didn't go well, and he was captured by the Reavers. For months he was drilled as a Reaver slave, but then he wound up in a slave camp for the Empire. Why this happened, he didn't want to share. The only thing he wants now is revenge. It seems me and Relic have this in common. Walker was a former dust bandit, roaming around the hub and trying to make a living from banditry. One day he got tired of his life and moved north to join the Holy Nation. He was sent to fight at Bast and eventually was captured by the Empire. Since then he has been trapped in Shobatai, waiting for a moment to escape. Walker decided to stay with us as he grew tired of the fight between the big factions. Rinosuke, just like all other hivers, had no name at first. In a fight against the Empire, he was captured and put into slavery. However, the anti-slavers raided the southern slave farm and freed him. He was broken out by a man named Rinosuke, and since then he joined the anti-slavers. They worked together as a team, but sadly in one of the raids, Rinosuke, alongside the other anti-slavers, lost their lives. Only our hiver survived, but he was sent back into slavery. To honor his former friend, he adopted his name, and when we freed him, he suggested that we should team up with the anti-slavers. I heard a lot about them, and I guess it's time that we meet. Hild got into a fist fight with Rinosuke before I could talk to him. I had to break them up, but this rather angry Shek came from a lineage of well-known slave hunters, named after parts of a blade. Being headstrong in battle, he was well respected with the slavers. One day, his master gave him the task to hunt down the anti-slaver named Rinosuke. He has been a burden on the nobles and they want him gone. And since then, Hild has been tracking him down. And at the slave farm south, it came to a battle between those two. But he was not able to get him, and so his titles were denounced, and he had to pay for the slaves that escaped that day. But worse than that, he also lost his right arm. His anger now focused towards Rinosuke. He tracked him down again, and alongside his enemy was a nameless hiver that fought at his side. In this final battle, Hild ended Rinosuke's life but spared the hiver. Yet it was too late for Hild. The nobles already grew tired of him, and upon coming back they put him into shackles. The moment he saw Rinosuke, the hiver, he went ballistic. I told Hild that if he wants a place alongside us, and if he wants his revenge, he has to behave. Otherwise, I will have to deal with him. At last, there is a Scourgelander with the name of Pot-Pot. Pot-Pot once was a leader of a small rebellion against the Empire, charismatic and charming in nature, and now forced into slavery. Tormented and starved, he was shamed by them. And when he finally broke out, he promised to help us against the Empire. I welcome Pot-Pot to our group. He will be a welcome addition. I told Slink to watch over the others. I need allies now. I have to burn down the Empire at stake. The anti-slavers seem to be the best place for that. May you rest in peace, Suri, and do not worry, I will make them pay. It has been 2 weeks since Suri's death, and 2 weeks since I've been staying here in spring. The anti-slavers do not trust me. They think I could be a spy, and they want me to prove myself. Everything still feels so real. I cannot believe what had happened, but after all of this, there's a glimmer of hope in that darkness. Another night of not being able to convince Tin Fist has passed, and then, in the morning, I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was Argus, who charged at me and gave me a very rough hug. He still was shattered by what had happened to Suri, and he claims that he cannot lose another one. Behind Argus were Joseph, Abrarius, Nibble, and Rinosuke. I've lost my family, but since I've met so many people, it feels like there is still a part left. Rinosuke and Abrarius went inside the headquarters. While Rinosuke told Tin Fist who I was, I saw a weird conversation between Abrarius and Tin Fist. They somehow talked. I don't know what happened, but the anti-slavers decided to ally with us. I thanked everyone for helping me, but it was time to go back to our new home. And Slink has been busy. She has been training the freed slaves, and I was surprised, because we had some new members. When I arrived, they wanted to introduce themselves. The first one was a hive soldier with the name of Takari. Takari arrived not too long ago in the United Cities. He was dreaming of becoming successful in the Empire, but his dream came to an end as he saw the state the United Cities were in. Frustrated with the situation, he tried to contact the rebels. Sadly, they mistook him for an enemy and a spy of the United Cities, so they attacked him and left him in the desert, only to be picked up by a slave caravan and brought into the mines. His dream still hasn't changed. He wants to make the Empire a better place. Now, I thought that my eyes deceived me, but yes, there was a cannibal amongst us, or rather a former cannibal. Enivix was a human from the Holy Nation, but through some unknown means he ended up joining the cannibals. Enivix worked himself up, becoming a leader of some sort, but the Holy Nation struck down their camp, and in an epic battle he lost to a high paladin. He then was enslaved and was put in one of the roughest holy mines, but through his willpower and strength he was able to escape. But he somehow wound up in a slave caravan and was brought into the desert. And when Slink freed him, he swore allegiance to our cause as long as we attacked the Holy Nation. Right next to the cannibal was a Greenlander with the name of Windex. Windex was born in poverty, and he was forced to steal to provide food for him and his only friend. Many times he did not get caught, but on a fateful day he tried to steal the katana of a noble and was beaten severely and brought into a slave camp. After months of being beaten down and insulted, he was relocated to Port North, and this is where Slink destroyed the slave caravan and freed him. He swore to protect us, and he will also look for his lost friend. Crown is a skeleton who has awakened not too long ago. His memory is foggy, and he has forgotten most of this world. He somehow ended in the hands of the slaver, and Slink decided to free him. Since then, he has decided to follow us and help us rebuild the Empire. Boop is a hive drone that escaped with a hiver named Beep. While Beep dreamed of enhancing his body with prosthetics, Boop despised metal on his skin. Together they ran off to Mongrel. Surrounded by cannibals, Boop eventually broke down and tried to run away. For days he kept avoiding the Holy Nation and bandits until he eventually collapsed and was enslaved by some manhunters. While slaves have it hard in general, it was worse for Boop, as he had to endure the iron around his body and the rusted metal in his cage. When Slink freed him, he was more than willing to join us, and maybe one day we can look for his friend Beep. And the last one, a man with the name of Windstrider. Growing up as a poor man, it was hard in the United Cities. Strider never had it easy, but he always kept a smile on his face and stayed positive. Even when one day he was enslaved and sent to the mines, shackled with iron, he still helped the other slaves and made sure they have it better. When he finally got freed, he promised to help us as much as possible, as he wants to make the world a better place. After talking to all the new recruits, I was tired. I needed to lay down. Suri was still on my mind, but the future for those people keeps me going. I have to make many allies now, but I am tired. I feel sleepy. Our army is growing each day. More and more slaves are revolting against the Empire, and with all the new allies we made, the Sands soon will have their revenge on the nobles. Speaking of revenge, yesterday Mirosaki brought me a present. I don't know how he did it, but he stole the crossbow of Lord Nagata. With this weapon, I will carry out my revenge. I thanked Mirosaki, not just for the crossbow, but also for forging an alliance with the Sand Ninjas. There is also another faction that could help us against the coming storm. They call themselves Narcos Disciples. In the past, they helped us when we got attacked. Maybe we will be able to forge another alliance. But one step after the other. The Traders Guild has meanwhile provided us with lots of supplies. Their caravans are not safe anymore. With our growing numbers, it was time to enlarge our hideout. We bought a destroyed building from the renegades and rebuilt it. After the building was finished, I called in the new members so I can get to know them. Celia was a beautiful girl from a young age. When she was 17, her parents sold her to a nobleman. It was the worst period of her life, and when she was 20, she ran away. But slave hunters caught her shortly after escaping. The nobleman eventually got bored of her and sent her off to a slave camp. From then on, she wants to take revenge on him and the entire United Cities. I could see the glimmer in her eyes. It reminded me of Suri, and I welcomed Celia to the rebellion. Salman was once a Western Hive soldier who got caught in a fight with a big thing. All his teammates were food for those monsters. Salman escaped and lost his left arm in that fight. Seeing this as a failure, the Queen exiled him. Being homeless now, he traveled through the world looking for adventures, which took him into the great desert. But then he was ambushed by slavers who took him into a slave camp. He was waiting for an opportunity to escape, and when we arrived, he used his chance and came with us. Envil was born into privilege within the prestigious confines of the United Cities. His family, the House of Kale, was well respected and renowned. But behind closed doors, his family was working against the Empire, freeing slaves and undermining their oppression. Eventually, they were betrayed by a rival noble house, and they were destroyed. Envil was a teenager at this point, and he barely escaped with his life, only to be captured by slavers and thrown into the mines. Every day that passed, he was waiting for an opportunity to break out and get his revenge on the Empire. With us freeing him, he swore loyalty to our cause. Prophet is as old as his hard drive can remember. Given its limited capacity, he just cannot survive on his own. With his memory leaking, he tends to forget everything. This allowed the slavers to just fool him into thinking he's a slave. He just worked away without remembering his glorious past. When we freed him, I asked Joseph if he can take a look at him. Maybe he is able to restore some of his memories. Mag was a normal drone guard in the Southern Hive, tasked to free some hivers that recently got enslaved. Together with a band of warriors, they marched into the camp and successfully beat down the slavers. But suddenly, the gates closed and more slavers surrounded them. It was a trap. In the glorious battle, Mag fought for his life, but eventually his wounds left him unconscious. A few days later, he woke up in a different slave camp. Since then, he swore revenge on the slavers, and when we broke his chains, he swore loyalty to our cause. Lily was a farmer who lived on the border between the Holy Nation and the United Cities. Her village was destroyed and looted by the samurai, and she helped her brother Luke to flee. She was enslaved and brought to the closest slave farm. Months of hard work went by until we freed her. She was very thankful that we helped her, and she also mentioned her brother. Maybe one day she can find him. Once the introduction was done, I gave them over into the hands of the others. If we keep growing like this, I have to consider building us a home for ourselves. Right now, I don't have time to fantasize about this. We still need more training, better weapons and better armor. And I also have to train my crossbow skills, because when the time comes, I will not miss this shot. The Narcos disciples, curious. Their countess seems to be a strong leader. They have indeed raised my interest. I have dealt with the Holy Nation before. Xenophobic, fanatic, and cursing and destroying everything that they don't know. They are not a dime better than the Empire. And Murasaki has an idea how we can use this for our advantage. The Holy Nation has sent many armies around Skinner's Rome, trying to secure their border, operating from Okran's shield. Many of those paladins have committed crimes against other races, especially against the Narcos disciples. We are going to bring some gifts to the Countess. By winning her favor, we can count on her help in the future. Meanwhile, our assault on the Empire and the Traders Guild has been increasing. Every day makes us stronger. While Argus and Leader are drawing the attention of the enemies, the others work perfectly together in bringing them down. Soon it is time that we try our first assault on the slave camp, and I already have a target in mind. Back at our hideout, Joseph has tried to collect some lost memories from Prophet. It seems like they're getting along well. And maybe one day, Prophet can remember who he was. Joseph also came up to me and apologized for Suri's death, but I do not blame him. He tried his best to defend a person he barely knew, and I hold him in high regards for that. Also, he told me about an interesting place called Tengu's Vault, and as it happens, it lies close to where we are heading. So it might be a good idea to check it out while we're on our way down there. Slink has meanwhile drilled the new recruits to train their strength. We are not some escaped slaves anymore. We are building an army. From another successful raid, we were able to free more slaves to fill our ranks. This time I made Rinosuke the leader of the assault. As a former anti-slaver, he has most of the experience, and it shows. After letting the escaped slaves rest, I called them in so I could get to know them. Kleenex. I don't know what he is, and I don't know why he decided to join us. He somehow feels familiar, like a relative that I have not seen in years, yet his appearance is frightening. But something tells me that he will make a good companion. Alistair Crow, a wanderer that didn't care much for the affairs of the Empire, walking through the deserts, visiting different cities, only to start a fight with some slavers in a bar that ended with him being imprisoned. After we freed him, he decided that his life as a wanderer is over. He now wants to fight back. Then there is a Shek named Sand. Once the bodyguard of a high-ranking noble, Sand was hailed as a formidable warrior. The wife of the noble was forced into this marriage and no love was between them. But a hidden love started to blossom between Sand and her. But good things only last so long, as they were caught. The nobleman cut his horn and insulted him by selling him into slavery. Years of suffering have brought clearance to his mind. If freed, he now wants to follow the warrior's path again, befitting to a Shek. And no love shall keep him from this. Yet he would give everything to see her lovely face again. Chin 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 is a hive worker whose hive was destroyed by skin spiders. An army of skin spiders. Or was it humans? Chin 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 cannot tell the difference. Since he escaped from the hive, his head was filled with voices, shouting, screaming, talking to him, only to find himself in a scary place with shackles around his body and people screaming at him to work harder. The torment ended when we freed him. Cronin Blau, a former guard captain of the tech hunters, Cronin and his friend and blood brother Blau went north to hunt for some ancient technology, but they were captured by the cannibals. The cannibals took the arms of Cronin, seeing it as some kind of rare meat. On the verge of death, Blau broke out of his cage and saved Cronin's life. They both escaped, and on their way home, a group of slavers shot down Blau, ending his life in the process. Since then, Cronin was forced to work in the mines. When we freed him, he swore revenge on the slavers that killed his brother, and he took his name as a second to honor his deeds. Pio Miho, an ex-samurai. His world was shattered when the noble he worked under lost a bet to a high-ranking slave trader. The noble could not afford to pay him in cats, so he just sold Pio Mio to him. Feeling betrayed by the ones he trusted, he swore revenge on the nobility. So when we broke him out of his cage, it was time to him to stand true to his words. With this, some more promising recruits have entered our service. I thanked them and I let them out to train. I then told Slink to get the army ready. It is time that we hunt for some paladins. The fight against the Holy Nation keeps dragging on. Not only was it some good combat experience for our army, we also were able to better our relationship with the Narcos disciples. But the Countess was not easy to convince, so the battle will continue until we allied them. But after days on the battlefield, we needed a rest. So we decided to move back to Shraf. Arriving there, we healed our injuries and filled our bellies. Once we were mere slaves, barely able to hold a weapon, but now, look at us, we are shaping up to become a real threat for the Empire. I know that once the Countess is on our side, it is time to strike our first bigger target. I also discussed a potential attack on Tango's world with Joseph. He mentioned that this prison might hold more valuable soldiers that can join our ranks. And we also talked about a potential new home. Shref will be too small to house all of us, so we need to set up an outpost at one point. This will surely draw the attention of the Empire, but with many allies, this should not be a problem. Meanwhile, Rinosuke and Slink were not able to hold their feet still. They took some of the others and told me they would be back. When the night approached, they did come back with some freed slaves behind them. They raided a slave caravan, freeing more of the unfortunate ones. This moment always feels awkward when the new recruits stand before me, acknowledging me as their leader, but this is my life now. I told the new recruits to step in so I can get to know them. Els is the twin brother of Els, the fat shack thief. Els is a huge and obese shack, and not the smartest bunch. Many question how he was able to keep himself alive this far. Slink has also told me that when the slave caravan got attacked, Els ran up to them, crying, sobbing, begging to be saved. He might act like a wimp, but Els possesses a huge natural strength. We just need to make sure he learns how to use it. Gale was a hunter, providing for his settlement in the region of Bast. After a long trip away that took him around the world, he came back to his village, but it was razed down to the ground. One of the survivors told Gale that the Empire destroyed his home, killing his wife in the process and taking his daughter prisoner. His path led him from one slave camp to the other until he finally learned that the daughter has also died while trying to flee from slavery. He started his personal vendetta and swore that Emperor Tenku won't survive his wrath. While on his warpath, he eventually got captured by slavers, but he was lucky, as shortly after, Slink has freed him from his chains. I can relate to Gale, and I promised him that we won't rest until the nobles are dead. Etham was taken into slavery at a young age. When they were traversing through Bast, his family got ambushed by the Empire. His father, a paladin, died in this ambush. With his father dead and his mother left severely wounded, Etham's hatred towards the Empire grew. He has also lost faith in Okran. The slavers dragged him off to a slave camp, but he never fully neglected his heritage. He wants to wear the unholy armor. Etham was extremely thankful for being saved and swore loyalty and revenge on the slavers. Aiden was an ex-noble guard. When he was flirting with a noble's daughter, things escalated and he was forced into slavery. While being a slave, his hatred towards the Empire grew, and he swore revenge on those who jailed him. Excellent with the polearm, he decided to use his skills for our cause. Shaku was part of a gang, pillaging through the Holy Nation, but one day the paladins caught up to them and defeated their whole squad. Playing dead on the ground, Shaku was able to trick them and escape with her life. Fleeing to the United Cities, she started to drown her sorrows at the bar, only to fall unconscious and be captured by some slavers. But she was in luck again, as we freed her from her misery. Inoishi's family originated from the Hook, his father owning a bar in Clownsteady. On the side he was guarding caravans. This is where he met his future wife. Settling up a small business near Clownsteady, life was good until his father got an addiction to hashish, slowly deteriorating and selling off everything until nothing was left but his wife and his 2 children. As a last resort, he tried to sell his family to the slavers, but his mother took the children and fled with them. A life of hardship awaited him, eventually losing his mother and getting separated from his brother. And then the last mission in which he went on would be his demise. His quest was to free someone out of the slaver's hand, but he was betrayed and sold into slavery himself. His hatred for the Empire now overtook his other emotions, and he wants revenge. And so we welcomed the Mongol soldiers to this army. Before the day ended, I visited Suri's grave. I come here as often as possible. I cannot forget my goal and the reason why we are doing all of this. The pain of my slavery. Wessel. This slave camp was more than just that. It was the start of my misery. The strength I have now. Would I have possessed it back then, Suri would still be... But she's not alive. And I can't blame myself for that. It is the nobles' fault. They keep this corrupt apparatus going, but not for much longer. The Narcos disciples, they are tough. Even though we are on good terms with them now, they won't let me speak with their empress. She's a wise and strong leader, I can see that, so I will work towards allying with her. But now I have another target in mind. It is time to begin my revenge. The noble of Wessel will lose his life today. I'm going to make sure of that. After Mirosaki and I came back from the Narcos disciples, Sling had already prepared our soldiers. Some of them were nervous, and others, like Argus and Nibble, were embracing the battle. They want to shed blood, and I can fully understand why. Before our march on Wessel, Albrarius and Rinosuke came up to me. Rinosuke told me that with another successful raid, they were able to free more slaves. I cannot take them with me on this journey, but I need to know them. I want to know who is joining us. Beetle was a former caravan guard that got ambushed by Beak Things. As the only survivor, he was saved by the tech hunters, but he wasn't able to rejoin his hive, being marked as being not good enough for the queen. Feeling hopeless in this huge world, he volunteered at the slave farm, as it gave him purpose. But after weeks, he realized how important his new freedom was. Now, since we gave him his freedom back, he swore that he will serve us until he draws his last breath. Death was a mountain, even for a shack, strong muscles and a fierce character. But while camping in the desert, he was ambushed by a group of slave traders and sold off into slavery. Now that he is free again, he wants to fight, and his target seems clear. The slavers have to bleed. Takashi, a large and tall man, was a former samurai heavy, working for the nobility and the slavers. Yet he was betrayed by the nobles and ended up into slavery. Years of suffering went by, his skills became rusty, but since he got his freedom back, he will fight against the Empire. corpse is pretty tall for a Scourgelander. Being strong and courageous, he joined the United City as a samurai. But as fate had it, he lost against a group of paladins, and lo and behold, he was put in shackles by some slave traders. Betrayed by his own kind, he now seeks revenge upon those who jailed him. Scraphead, a massive skeleton, being a loner and surviving on his own, until one day he was captured and put to work in the mines. Year after year had passed until he saw his opportunity and fled with the others. His life became boring. Now he seeks new adventures with us. Nato was a swamper who loved rice-wheat dishes and made a living out of smuggling hashish into the United Cities. Sadly, he was caught and thrown into slavery. In this time of torment, he started to despise the Empire, and he swore that if he can get out of here, he will grab a crossbow and give them a taste of their own medicine. I immediately sent the new recruits off to training. Some of them wanted to join the assault, but I cannot trust them yet. Before we started our march, I gave Joseph a different task. It is time that we start our own home, so I told him to make a plan for our base. After I finished the talk with Joseph, we started to move towards Wessel. We camped near it, and we are now waiting for daytime. Soon, Suri, our revenge will begin soon. Wessel lies destroyed before us, the noble dead, cut in half by Argus's sword. Vengeance. I thought it would feel better, but it doesn't bring Suri back. Yet this will not change my determination. I'm going to hunt them down, one by one. And Nagata will follow them soon. After we looted the rest of Wessel, we freed more slaves and went back to Shraff. Meanwhile, Joseph has finished the plan for our new home, and he has also found a place where we can build it. Before we moved to this place, I had to tend to the new freed slaves. A few of them wanted to join us. Navalian the Artharas was once a holy paladin fighting for his god Okran. Yet, through a twisted fate, he fell in love with a Shek woman. He fled together with his Shek wife Shandara, yet on the way they were ambushed by slavers. Separated from his wife, he was dragged into slavery. Now, with regaining his freedom, he wants to join us and potentially look for his lost love. Killian was also born in the Holy Nation, living the life of a simple farmer. His family were falsely labeled as heretics, so Killian and his family were enslaved and brought into rebirth. This is where Killian spent most of his life. His family eventually succumbed to hard labor and starvation, and one day, when the slaves started an uprising, he was able to escape, fleeing into the great desert and right into the hands of some slave traders. Josephson was a warrior, working as a mercenary and sellsword. It didn't matter who stood in his way. For the right sum, he would make short work of his enemy. Sadly, he got into an argument with a noble that did not pay him for his work, so he punched him in the face. For this he was enslaved and severely beaten. Now he seeks revenge against the nobles, and he won't stop until they bleed for what they have done. Eskar was known as a coward in the city of Shopatai, an opportunist at heart, stealing what he can, making sure only to look out for himself. One day this all came back to bite him. As he tried to loot a knocked out sand ninja, this one stood back up and injured his leg. Through luck he was able to limp away, yet before he was able to reach the city, manhunters enslaved him. After we freed him, he decided to call off his life of being alone. He now wants to use his skills for the rebellion. Biop was one of many drones that were exiled from their hive, being called defective. Even after Biop was enslaved, he did not give up. He wants to become a strong warrior one day, and he asked us to take him in, so he can achieve this goal. Brown was from a fishing village off the northern coast, living a simple life, making just enough cats to feed himself. When he became an adult, he moved out to trade with the citizens in the Empire. Yet, on his way there, he was beaten and robbed of his belongings. Then, some manhunters enslaved him and brought him to Vessel. After we freed him, he was thankful and willing to repay us for working for the rebellion. The new members looked promising, and I could show their worth right at the beginning, as we need all hands to get our base started. Once the preparations were done, we moved to the place that Joseph has marked. We started to build right away, and after days and days of hard labor, our new home was finished. It was nothing fancy, but enough to keep us safe and fed. Yet the cannibals soon showed up, trying to eat us alive, but they were no match for our strength. And a few days later, the Holy Nation knocked at our gates, but again we were able to defeat them. It is now on us to prepare this hideout for more assaults. Once this bastion stands tall, there will be nothing that can stop us. The Hidden Sands. A new home. A new hope. But our hideout did not stay hidden for a long time. Our enemies were knocking at our gates, trying to rip down what we built up. But with thick walls, a strong gate, and skilled sharpshooters, we were able to defend it. We still are lacking better weapons and armor, but these will come in time. Oh Suri, you would have loved to see those blooming fields. After all, we were farmers at our heart, but times change us. Joseph has also constructed a prison where we get information from the samurais. We were able to find out that Port North has been weakened by the destruction of Vessel, and it would be the perfect time now to strike it. Destroying Port North would give us and our allies a hard grip on the northern side of the desert. I called in Slink, Mirosaki and Rinosuke. We had to make a battle plan. Meanwhile, Manu informed me there were some slaves outside of our gates. They fled from a slave camp and heard about our rebellion, and now they are seeking to join us. I let them in, Yet the turrets were aiming at them. I need to get to know them first. They could be spies after all. Takashi was a former samurai heavy, clearly a story of irony. He made his money by enslaving poor souls, but he got the wrong end of the stick, and after some disagreement with the noble, he was thrown into shackles. He was actually a slave in vessel, but when we destroyed it, he hesitated in joining us, as he was still haunted by his past. He wants to make his wrongs right. Kalthazar was an anti-slaver until Igor's army ambushed them. In exchange of a farmer's life, he sacrificed his arms. Being on the verge of death, Kalthazar was patched up by some slavers and got dragged out of the slave camp. After reawakening from his coma, he was forced to work in the mines. Yet, with these cheap prosthetics, it was hard to do. But he eventually escaped and looked for our hideout. He now seeks revenge against Igor and the Empire. Zeeb was expelled from the Midland Hive, seeking refuge in the hub, where he made his daily life by mining ore and selling it for a low price. But in a moment of tragic, he was surprised by the slave traders and put into slavery. For months he has been working away, until a small uprising gave him a chance to escape. Third was born into a dojo of traveling martial artists, training in the way of the optical, a fighting style that uses distraction and misleads. A dangerous life where many lost their life, but the others learn from their mistake. Children born in this were not given a name, but instead they were named after the order they were born in. So Third was obviously the third child. He learned quickly, but his dojo was caught in the battle between the Holy Nation and the United Cities. Knocked out by a samurai, he reawoke in a cage, and after weeks of working, he used his skills to escape. He's now looking for a way to hone his skills and repay the Empire for what they've done to him. He also hopes that his family is still alive, and maybe one day he can see them again. More interesting people are willing to join this rebellion. It seems that whatever we were doing it right. I accepted them into the hidden sands and offered them a place to sleep and some food. Our wrath will come upon the Empire again, and this time it will hit Port North. I have to ready myself and pick up the fighters that will join me. Mohi is a savage in battle. His Southern Hive nature is clearly shining through. He is brutal, yet he is very loyal to my cause. Although sometimes I have to calm him down a little so he doesn't go completely overboard. Yesterday he asked me about the cannibals and about their tribes and how they live. They piqued his interest, and I have to say, this worries me. Just a little. Mohi also wants to take the city of Shopatai, so we can finally take revenge on Lord Nagata. I must say I won't lie if I don't want to rush in and shoot that bastard a bolt between his eyes. Yet I cannot risk the lives of everyone. I have to make sure we are powerful enough. 1 or 2 more weeks and this should be doable. While walking next to the gate, I spotted Gale. He has been out again, searching for Yuki, his hands still bloody. I greeted him and asked him if he wants a drink. He looked at me and gave me a heartfelt smirk, explaining the situation. Apparently, Yuki has been brought to the noble Inaba who resides in Stoat. I could sense that he just wants to burst into the city and look for her, but since we burned down Port North, the Empire have increased their security. I promised Gale that we will find her, but we need to be prepared first. Joseph has meanwhile suggested that we build a house for the generals where we can plan our next strike. I think this is a good idea, but first I need to finish the bar. We need a place to drink and socialize. While I was talking to Joseph, Slink came up to me with the 2 new slaves that we freed from Port North. Both of them were different than the people we have recruited before. Dai was a loyal samurai. Most of his life he spent in Bast until one fateful day, where he ventured out to destroy a cannibal camp, and meanwhile the Holy Nation destroyed his home. Losing faith in the United Cities, he became more like a rebel and decided he wants to be a mercenary. This was until he met Lord Nogino, who he was protecting at this point. Lord Nogino, we freed him from Port North. His cell was bigger and more comfortable than the others, and he was still wearing his noble gloves. This struck me as a cruel joke at first, but Nogino was once the noble in Bast. With his rebellious blood, he wanted to free all slaves that were not criminals and forbid the enslavement of the poor. But Emperor Tengu and the others quickly put an end to this and threw him into shackles, replacing him with his cruel sister. He was in luck though, as shortly after the Holy Nation destroyed Bast and killed his whole family, leaving him with a deep hatred for the Holy Nation. Since Longan was his uncle, he was not executed or sent to Tengu's vault, but instead he was held prisoner in Port North. After freeing him, Nogino swore loyalty to the Sands of Hate. He wants to help to reform the Empire. It cannot hurt having a noble by our side, but I can only hope that the others will accept him. I told Nibble to keep an eye out on Nogino and on Dai. I have to make sure that we're not running into a trap from the Empire. But right now, I have to focus on getting everyone ready. Shopatai will fall soon, and I will get my revenge. The war in Bast is still ongoing. We try to get a foothold in the battle and maybe secure an outpost, but the resources the Empire and the Holy Nation put into this war are insane. If they would focus that much into their economy and their people, this world would be a better place. Wounded, we regrouped and went back to our hidden sands, where we replaced lost limbs and healed our injuries. We spent the next couple of days preparing for the battle at Shopatai, and while we did that, Joseph focused on finishing the bar. This bar is another milestone in our rebellion. It gives us back the freedom of socializing, something that we have missed behind those rusty bars. Tomorrow, our assault on Shopatai will start, so I forbid everyone to drink alcohol. I need them to be in good shape. I have also honed my crossbow skills. Lord Nagata will get a taste of his own medicine. This is the perfect revenge for Suri. I visited her grave today. I cannot forget why we are doing this. I have to stay focused. When I came back, the army was already prepared. They were looking at me with high hopes. I could see it in their face. Everyone, just like me, wanted revenge. So we started moving. Nagata, I hope you are prepared. Lord Nagata is dead, fallen in battle. As soon as they saw him, they charged at him, striking him down in an instant. I wish I would have been able to shoot him with his own crossbow, but seeing how everyone shared my sorrow made me proud to be their leader. Suri, your death has been avenged. With Lord Nagata dead, our grip around the northern part of the Great Desert is getting tighter. But to defeat the whole might of the Empire, we need help. That's why we went back to our deal with the Narcos disciples. We brought them more prisoners, and then, finally, the Countess spoke to me, embracing me and giving me a trinket and a sign that marks me as her general. While she will support us, she cannot help us against the Empire, since the Holy Nation is still around and hunting them. The plan was now clear. If the Holy Nation falls, the Countess will give us her full support. Murasaki has proven himself as a leader and loyal friend. I left it up to him to plan an assault on the Holy Nation. Meanwhile, I spotted a curious scene back at our hideout. The boy that Joseph took under his wings. If my memory doesn't betray me, he called him Muti. He was training with Mohi. It seems like they get along quite well. While Mohi is a savage, he can also be calm and collected. I value this trait in him. But I think it is time now to get Muti in our ranks. It's the least I can do. Muti grew up as a street urchin, having been forgotten by a slave caravan. He started stealing food and cats to help him survive, and he got good with it, only being caught twice. Both of these times he managed to get away. However, the third time he was caught by Joseph. But instead of scolding him, he offered him a job in exchange for food and safety, helping him with daily jobs and on the repairs on Prophet. He now was ready to go into battle. He bought himself a crossbow with the cats he collected, and he stole a katana from a samurai. I welcomed Muti to the rebellion, and I ordered Mohi to train him further in combat. With them continuing their training, I got back to Joseph, who was still trying to fix Prophet's memory. Whatever happened to him, it seems like it was devastating. I don't see it often that Joseph gets frustrated, but this time he did. I interrupted them as we needed to talk about our defense. If we assault the Holy Nation and attack their cities, their revenge will be devastating. We need to be prepared. That's why I suggested that Joseph shall fortify our defense. When I left Joseph, Murasaki came running to me. He finished his assault plan, and our first target will be Okrin's shield. This will be a tough battle, but I believe in us. Oakrin's shield has fallen, and Valenta was brought to the Countess, so she may judge over his fate. With Oakrin's shield gone, the Holy Nation's strength has been hit by quite a bit. While we did our allies a favor, the Inquisition will come after us. That is why Joseph has built another tower, and the Countess has sent us a few of her turret gunners that will now help us to defend the hidden sands. Furthermore, I've called in a council. Our allies are currently fighting each other, but this has to stop. To defeat our enemies, we have to fight on the same side. So the Dune renegades, the rebels, the Narcos disciples, and the anti-slavers have agreed to make peace with each other. And Mirosaki brought me some more good news. He knows about the group that calls themselves Flotsam Ninjas. They hate the Holy Nation and are a strong resistance near World's End. He wants to go over to the hideout and create an alliance. I would be a fool not trying to make more allies, so I gave Mirosaki my approval and sent him off. Meanwhile, my army has healed their wounds and they're celebrating our victory. Muti is fitting in quite well with the rest, and with Mohi's and Joseph's guidance, he will make a great soldier. But we don't have time to rest. We have to move in farther into our enemy's territory, and for that we need to be prepared. So it's time to continue our training. The war with the Holy Nation keeps going on. After the fall of Oakrin's shield, we kept pushing farther into their territory, until we stumbled upon Oakrin's fist. Overconfidence. I thought I could take the city too, but I was foolish. Oakrin's fist had a better defense and way more soldiers. We were lucky that no one died in this battle, but a few limbs have been lost and we had to retreat back to the hidden sands. When Joseph saw that Muti was heavily injured, having lost a leg, I could sense that he was not happy. Even though skeletons do not have facial expressions, but I could see that it bugged him. Recently, Joseph has raised concerns about me, about my urge for revenge. He might be right. But I have to stay strong. I have to focus. As long as the nobles are alive, we will never be at peace. I think I will grant Joseph his wish and let him go to the Great Library. While we assaulted Oakrin's fist, we came across their prison and we were able to free 2 people. One of them a woman, the other one a tall man. After I gave them some food and let them rest, I talked to them. Eilish was raised by a loving family. Unfortunately, this love wasn't given to her, but her younger sister. It did not matter what she did. They always saw her as not worthy. As a young girl, she found solace by doing odd jobs with an old monk who lived down the street. Soon, she realized that he was a martial artist master, training her to become a kunoichi, a female ninja. For a family's festival, she returned home one day, only to find out that one of her sisters was married off to an evil man to a faraway land. Trying to save her sister Kiva, she formed an army to hunt this man. He was a high-ranking soldier in the Holy Nation. When they moved up north, they came to the hub where the battle took place. But betrayal struck, as some of Eilish's men turned against her and the Holy Nation's trap snapped. Many of them died, some rooted. Only a few alongside Eilish were captured. She spent years in slavery, moving from one prison to the next. The evil man tried to keep her alive as long as possible, holding her up as an example for going against the Holy Nation. But luck was with her, as we broke her out of the cage and set her free. Now she has a chance to redeem herself and destroy the Holy Nation once and for all. Maybe we can also find her sister Kiva. Ezio was a caravan god patrolling around the cities of the tech hunters and the Empire, a loyal follower of the law, seemingly on the good terms of the Traders Guild. But the Empire is vicious. One day, Ezio and his group were passing through the gates of Hang, when suddenly the gate guard screamed at them, talking about illegal goods and whatnot. They tried to prove their innocence, but they were quickly put in chains and sent off to a slave camp. It turns out it was a twist between nobles, and after months of hard labor, Ezio was able to flee and made it to the Skim Sands, only to be captured by a group of paladins, and again he found himself imprisoned until we freed him. I told Muti to show the new recruits around. Meanwhile, I was preparing myself. It seems like the Holy Nation is stronger than I thought, so maybe we do need more allies. Nibble has been mentioning the Shek Kingdom quite a bit. With Asata's help, we could not only overthrow the Empire, but also get help against the Holy Nation. So we regrouped, filled our pockets, and marched again, entering Shek territory. As we went through the plains, we reached the city of Etmek. The Shek were not very welcoming, but they are not our enemies. And after my talk with Bayan, Asata's right hand, I know what we have to do. Hunt their enemies. Bandits, Holy Nation, or the Buckmaster. Yet, I think we are not prepared to fight the legendary Buckmaster, and I don't want to risk the life of my soldiers. Whatever we decide to do, there is a lot of work ahead of us. Just like a little boy, I was scolded by Joseph. A part of me wanted to yell at him, show him that he is talking to his leader, and another part of me knew that he was right. I made a colossal mistake. We should be happy that no one died, yet it still makes me angry that it was my fault. When we were done talking, Joseph packed his things and took Muti with him on his way to the great library. Before they left, Muti came running to me and said a few last words. "Please, Master Sin, do not be mad at Joseph. He only cares for your and our well-being." I nodded in Muti's direction and I sent him off. I know he is right. Joseph has always been caring for me. The war against the Holy Nation and the influence of Nako's disciples seemingly disrupt my train of thought. But I'm not staying down. I'm going to make sure we are better prepared next time. Since our victory over the splinter group from the Holy Nation, the Stone Golem has sent her daughter Seto with us. She shall learn from the rebellion and hone her skills. Furthermore, the Shek are now going to help us against the Holy Nation, which is going to be important for the next battle that I have planned. While we were discussing how to ally the Shek Kingdom, Abrarius constantly pressured me into going to the Bugmaster. It seems like there is something about him that connects Abrarius to the Bugmaster. When I tried to play it off, he was still going on about it. I assured Abrarius that we will go to the Bugmaster one day, but right now it is too dangerous. While raiding the splinter group, we also freed one prisoner that now wants to join us. His name is Yassikan, a mercenary that already had quite a few jobs under his belt. One day, a man hired him to raid a slave camp of the Holy Nation. Even though they fought valiantly, most of the mercenaries died. Yassikan survived, but he was forced into slavery, working away in the holy mines until he got relocated. Since he was a Shek, the Holy Nation thought they can get some information from him, but it did not take long until we broke him out of his cage. I sent Yassikan to our armory to get himself some gear. Meanwhile, Murasaki and I have been planning our next assault on the Holy Nation. He also suggested that we should build a small outpost to strengthen our cause. But before we do that, Okran's fist must fall, and this time we will be successful. Okran's fist lies and crumbles. Our second assault on the city of the Holy Nation was successful, and with Okran's fist gone, the fanatics have lost control in the northern parts. We then looted what we can and made it back home. While our father would be greeted by cheering faces, our hideout struggled with a different problem. The cannibals have become a plague. Since they found our location, their assaults have been bigger and bigger. And before I could devise a plan, Mohi stepped in. He had already prepared something for me, as he wanted to pay the cannibals a visit since a long time. I know he is interested in their culture, yet I did not think he was already preparing an attack. While I went through the next steps with Mohi, Murasaki has been on a diplomatic mission between us and the Flotsam ninjas. He wants to establish a base inside of the Holy Nation's territory, and with the help of the Flotsam, this could be doable. I also think he has eyes for Moll. He has been making many trips to her, some of them I did not even order. But as long as it strengthens our bands, I am satisfied. Joseph and Muti have still not returned from the Great Library. I hope nothing happened, and I hope they're doing fine. Meanwhile, Nibble has made it out to be more than just bones and muscles. He was right with allying the Shek Kingdom. They are a strong ally. and I think I need to consider putting Nibble into a higher rank. We will see how he performs in the future. Now, it is getting late and I am getting tired. We have to be prepared for tomorrow. The cannibals are dangerous and I cannot underestimate them. The cannibals in Darkfinger have been destroyed. They will no longer be a threat to our safety. While this area is now secure, more of them are around the cannibal plains. To increase his leadership, Murasaki has asked me if he could lead our army into this battle. I don't mind him being a leader in that case. There are many other things I have to prepare, so I let him take the charge. Murasaki has also strengthened our band with the Flotsam Ninjas, and together we established an outpost in the northern part of Oakran's Valley. The outpost has the name of Dune, and under the leadership of Murasaki, we've established a small force of freed rebels that fight for the Flotsam Ninjas. These sand rebels will secure the area and help us out in the future. Another topic that had me a bit worried was Moe. He took one of the cannibals with us, and he now tried to integrate him into our army. Although this one fought valiantly, it still feels weird. We already have one cannibal in our group, but this one seems crazy. It didn't help. I could not talk Moe out of it, so it seems that he's going to join us. Ungern, a former cannibal punisher, a huge and muscular man living his life as a cannibal. When Moe defeated him in battle, he started to laugh at him. This made Moe like him even more. And now Moe wants to train him to become his bodyguard. He can't speak, but he understands when he is spoken to. While I have a bad feeling about this, I allowed Moe to train him, but if he does anything to hurt us, he will be dealt with. While Murasaki is leading the army towards the cannibal plains, I stayed home to prepare our next assault. The High Inquisitor Seta. Once he has been dealt with, the Holy Nation will lose most of its strength, and then the Phoenix will be an easy target. When the others come back, I want them to learn more about tactics, so if I'm not here anymore, someone else will take my scepter. I just hope this day doesn't come too soon. The assault on the High Inquisitor will be difficult, so I have to be prepared. The army has returned to the hidden sands, success written all over their faces. Murasaki has led the army into the cannibal plains, and with that he has defeated the Grand Wizard. But that is not all. He also has allied the Dead Cat and helped them to reclaim their cities. I thanked Murasaki for his deeds. With this task, the rebellion has grown even stronger. I made sure we had enough alcohol back at the base so that we could have a feast tonight. We also had to mourn a fallen warrior. Naito's life was taken by the Empire when they assaulted our base. We will drink on his glorious deeds, and he will be remembered as a hero. The morale of my warriors has to stay high. Even though we defeated the cannibals, more enemies have risen up. The Stormichas, a group of barbaric nomads that have settled in Darkfinger, and the bandit faction called the Yabuta Outlaws. If they keep attacking us, I will deal with them swiftly, so they better keep their weapons low. Meanwhile, Joseph and Muti have made it back to the Hidden Sands. It felt good to see them again. I hope our twist did not damage our relation with each other. What was a bit more troublesome for Joseph was the new cannibal friend of Mohi. I really hope that he has him under control. In the same day, the Empire also showed back up at our doorstep. While we struggled last time, with our full might we defeated them. Especially with all the allies that were helping us, this battle was a bit easier. Sadly, trying to form an alliance between them failed. There is a constant struggle between our allies, and there isn't much I can do to stop them. This is the world we live in. As long as they are loyal to me, I have to be okay with that. According to Murasaki, Nibble has also proven himself on the battlefield. As a group leader, he shows some great qualities. I'm considering giving him the rank of a general. It seems fitting for his deeds. In the future, he will have a say on the attacks that we make. I also have some other good news that I have to note down. Yesterday, a mercenary showed up at our doorstep, seeking for work, but instead of money, he wants to join us at the Hidden Sands. I have heard of this man before, so I let him in so that we could have a talk together. His name is Korax Blackfeather, the Raven Father, a known mercenary who travels from town to town and sells his skills. Born in a small village close to the border zone, growing up quite normally. It didn't take long for him to follow his father's footsteps and gain the trade of his father, the Keeper of Justice. His family was respected in the village, and he was training day in and day out to become a formidable fighter. Yet, on a fateful day, a group of strangers came to the village, trying to rob it. Amidst the elders pleading that they are poor, the bandits came back the same night, wreaking havoc over the village. His father died in battle, and even though Corvex was able to take the life of his killer, he had to flee the border zone. Now, years went by, traveling from one town to the other, until he heard of us, the growing rebellion. He wants to bring back a change into this world, and for him, we are the perfect fit. I invited Corvex to stay with us. While I will keep an eye out on him, I will trust his reputation and let him stay. Maui and Ungan have meanwhile formed a good team. They work together when attacking the enemy, and my fear of adding this cannibal to our group is dwindling. While I was watching my rebels grow in strength every day, it was now time to hold a feast. The night went on for long, and many stories were told and cups have been emptied. I let everyone rest for a bit longer today. They had earned it. But then I called on Slink. She has to make sure that everyone is equipped with better gear and weapons that we looted, and make sure that we are ready to march. The High Inquisitor Zeta must fall today. Once the Holy Nation is gone, the Empire will feel the might of our combined wrath. Justice has come over the High Inquisition. Stagger lies destroyed while we brought Zeta over to the Narcos disciples. The Countess could not believe her eyes as we brought him in front of her. While we were attacking the Holy Nation, the Empire had meanwhile attacked our hidden sands, and only with the help of the Shek Kingdom we were able to win. Sadly, many warriors died while they were defending our home. In their honor, we will carry on their legacy by taking out the Empire. But we were not alone in this. The Countess heard about the assaults and our losses, so she sent a group of soldiers to help us. These skeletons will forth on defend our base against the nobles. With the High Inquisitor gone, only one target remains in the Holy Land, the Phoenix himself. This self-righteous man has to be dealt with, and with the help of the Shek Kingdom, this should be doable. But before we venture out, Joseph has increased our defense by adding a second layer of walls. With this, and with our new acquired recruits, it will be harder to break into our home. Hopefully, this will keep the Empire on the outside. Meanwhile, I'll allow Maui to bring Ungern more into our society. I had him closed off at the beginning. I feared that he might not be able to control his urges. So far, things have been working out, and I cannot deny that Maui and Ungern make a great team together. As night approached, I called in Mirosaki, Slink, Nibble, and Mohi. We talked about the upcoming assault on the Holy Lord and what tactics we should use. Mirosaki also brought up the point about the Buckmaster. He volunteered to take Abrarius and a small group of skilled soldiers with him. While I trust Mirosaki and his skills, I'm afraid of losing not only a trustworthy general, but also a friend. We discussed our plans along the night, and then we wrapped it up and went to bed. Tomorrow, the reign of the Holy Nation will be over. I don't know what will happen to this world. I hope a better future awaits us. Overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer, something we have to experience firsthand. Again, I underestimated the Holy Nation, and we had to pay the price for it, this time with the death of our friends. Wounded and demoralized, we fled from Blister Hill, most of our armor and weapons destroyed in battle. When we came back to the hidden sands, the full impact of what just happened came after me. They are dead, and no one can bring them back. And again, it was my mistake, a misjudgment of the situation. I expected Joseph to scold me, but he did not do that. He did not even say a word to me. It seemed like he was mourning the death of our fallen brothers, or maybe it's his frustration with Prophet and the whereabout of the Nexus. But I am getting off track here. At the Hidden Sands, I called in a meeting once everyone got his wounds treated. For too long we relied on stealing armor from our enemies, and for too long we struggled in battle with nearly broken weapons. This will change now. I will change now. We are going to be prepared for the worst, and we need more training for that. and we also need our own weapons and our own armor. I gave our skilled rebels a job in becoming craftsmen. Through our constant battle with the Holy Nation and the Empire, we were able to amass a lot of materials that we can now use for our own. I know Joseph has a lot on his mind, yet I tasked him with the research of various weapons and armor types. This operation was a major setback for our rebellion, but this will not break us. We will come back from this stronger than ever. Sorry, I will not forget our legacy. The Empire will fall, but the Holy Nation will come first. After our devastating loss a few weeks ago, the change of plans we made is coming along well. It feels good to take a breather after all the war we had to endure. Not only that, but the loss of our friends indeed needed some grievance. While the armor and weapon production was moving along quite well, I tasked my generals to drill our soldiers and make them tougher in battle. They have to endure more pain. It might be cruel now, but if they survive in the upcoming war, it is a price I am willing to pay. Meanwhile, Joseph has been researching more blueprints so that we can smith different weapons and forge different armor. While I thought that the events in Blister Hill would damage our relationship, it weirdly enough has strengthened our bond. In these dire times, I need someone I can rely on, so I'm happy that this is the case. Mohi has meanwhile been in the talks with the mercenary guilds. He wants to hire as many soldiers as possible, and he has asked for my permission to use the money we made from our assaults. I granted him a hefty sum and told him to get the best mercenaries he can find. Mohi is coming along quite well, and the same can be said about Nibble. It feels like he has had a change in character, and he is developing more and more social skills, and what's even more important, leadership skills. My mind is still racing when I think back to Blister Hill, but I know that we will be prepared next time. So I don't want to waste more thoughts on that. There is much work ahead of me. The forges have been lit, and the weapons have been crafted. The armor has been shaped, and the soldiers are prepared. We are ready to face the Holy Nation and seek revenge for our friends that have passed. Many weeks of preparations are now leading to this moment, and while we are prepared, there is a seed of doubt in the back of my mind, reminding me what happened at our first assault. But my generals are standing behind me. Together with Joseph, I worked out a plan that will grant us victory over our enemies. While Nibble has been drilling the soldiers, Mohi went off to hire many mercenaries that will join us in this battle. Murasaki has also mentioned that if I allow him to speak with the Sand Ninjas, we might be able to fester our alliance. While the Sand Ninjas helped us out a lot in the past, I think it is a good idea to rely on their help again. Together with so much might, we will break down the defense of the Phoenix and finally bring him to justice. For all the crimes he has committed, there will be no mercy. Again, the Shack Kingdom will also lend us their strength. They have proven to be loyal allies, and I hope I can count on them against the Empire. After we were finished with the preparations, we started to move out. Our first destination was World's End. We needed to stock up on some ranged weapons and bolts. And after we rested at the inn, we moved down the path towards Okran's Valley, reaching the outskirts of Blister Hill. A shiver went down my spine as I recalled what happened last time, but my generals reassured me that we will win this time. So I shaked off the thought and started to prepare the battle plan. Now the Phoenix will fall. The phoenix wings have been cut, and so the bird lies broken together with his nation. Victory was achieved in this day. We took revenge for our fallen comrades, and we disposed a nation that was causing trouble for this world. With this power vacuum, other nations have to step in. The Shack Kingdom, the Flotsam Ninjas, and the Narcos Disciples. Right now, they work together, and I do hope it stays that way in the future. But there's one more ally that we can make: the skeletons in the Deadlands. They could lend us some strength against the United Cities. I stepped in front of their leader and presented the Phoenix. While I'm sure that the Narcos Disciples would have liked to get them, I prefer having more allies by our side. Joseph and I have also put aside our dispute, and we are working better together as a team than ever. In the battle against Blister Hill, he countered many attacks that were thrown in my direction, and I'm slowly starting to realize that we are no longer some lousy rebels. We are much more than this. With my trusted generals on my side, we could turn this land into something to fight for, a place where everyone can enjoy their life. While I was deep in my thoughts, Mirko snapped me out of it and reminded me about the Sand Ninjas. He successfully convinced them to support us in our battle against the Empire, but their leader wants to talk to me in person. That's why Slink, Mirosaki and I moved towards the headquarters, while the rest went back home. I gave Nibble the command to lead the army. It is a test for him, and I also let him wear the armor and the weapon of the Phoenix. It shall remind our enemies what strength we possess. As we reached the Sand Ninjas, we were greeted by the guards at the tower, and they brought us in front of the Oni. After a long talk, we agreed to share some of the spoils of war with them, and for that they will support us further in our battles. We also started to fuse our groups, so the Sand Rebels are now patrolling the desert together with the Sand Ninjas. Once the meeting was over, we moved back to the Hidden Sands. This is where I stumbled into a commotion at the gates. There was a man standing there arguing with Nibble. After some back and forth, it became clear that this man is working for the Traders Guild. Or, in his words, he was working for them. When I approached him, it quickly became obvious that he was telling the truth and that he wants to join the Hidden Sands. I invited him over for a drink, as I had many questions for him. Hiroaki was a clerk for the Traders Guild, employed in their headquarters, working directly under Longan. His job was to record profits, take notes for high-ranking traders and archive letters, and sometimes he was sent out to deliver messages. Since the Traders Guild's high corruption, this job was not easy. Hiroaki often had to juggle with the numbers to hide the criminal activities in the guild. Through the action of our rebellion, he noticed many changes in the guild. Caravans got lost, slave camps got raided, and even the fall of Lord Nagata. Many slaves vanished under these circumstances, and to clear his mind, Hiroaki started to read a book called The Blessing of Slavery, written by Lord Inaba. While he never was in line with slavery, what was written there in this book shocked him so much that he was left with hatred and loathing for the empire he worked for. He looked into the sands of hate, he tracked down our movements and he was following our steps. And when the time was right, he left the Traders Guild in search for our hidden sands, hiring a mercenary band and venturing into the desert. After days of venturing, he finally found us, left with no money nor food. He wants to work towards a better future, and he wants to learn how to fight, and he is willing to give his life for that. I had no reason to doubt Hiroaki's words. His motive for visiting us was clear to me. Also, since he has been in the headquarters of our enemy, I'm pretty sure Hiroaki has many useful informations on the Empire that we can use. I sent Hiroaki off to the armory and I told him to go to Nibble after that, so he may receive some training. Meanwhile, Maui and I have devised an assault plan for the city of Stoat. After our battle with the Phoenix, Stoat should be an easier target, and tomorrow morning we're going to start our assault. The city of Stoat was no match for our army. Lord Inaba was left with the Dune renegades, since they had to suffer the most under his rule. I see it fitting to let them judge over his fate. After we sacked the city, we moved back to our hidden sands. We stashed our goods and celebrated our victory over the Empire. I then had another talk with Hiroaki, who has meanwhile been drilled with Nibble's training program. One could clearly see that it already made him stronger and tougher. But I'm not here to admire his progress, I am here to seek his knowledge. On the day he came here, he told me about the importance of the slave camps. I always knew that the Empire was reliant on them, but it seems they hold an even more importance than I originally thought. Hiroaki has made that very clear. Now there are 3 slave camps left in the desert: Port South, Pank, and Scrim. If we attack those and destroy them, the Empire will be left weakened, which means we can make the battle easier for us. But there's a problem. So many freed slaves, and I cannot provide for them all. Yet I have an idea. I already talked to Joseph about using some of our spoils of wars and creating a camp where they could be housed. With all the allies we have, I am sure we should be able to pull this off. After some brainstorming, I sent out my generals to our allies, with the note that they should lend us their strength and some supplies, so we can start working on this camp. Meanwhile, I had another task for Joseph. He has to help me to construct a battle plan. We have to strike 3 camps in a quick succession. Swiftness is key in this operation, for that the Empire cannot reform their armies. It will be a run against time, so we have to be fast and deadly. Also, our enemies have unwillingly given us a bigger advantage. Some of the armor we found in Stout are pieces of masterwork. I don't know who crafted them, but they will surely protect us from any harm. A week went by while we were planning our next assault, and all my generals came back. Our allies all agreed to lend us some supplies and help us at our camp, so there is nothing left to do for us except for rally the army and destroy the last slave camps in the desert. Suri, I wish you could see that. Like the wind, we were blowing through the slave camps, leaving destruction behind us. The Empire was in shock. They did not anticipate the full might of the rebellion. Now, the large cities are starved, their food stocks are dwindling, and their nobles are furious. Hiroaki was right. We threw them into disbalance, but now we had to fix it. With the help of Joseph and our allies, we started to build a camp near the beach. In honor of my sister, I gave it the name of Suri's Refuge. Her name shall forever be remembered as a beam of freedom. Right now, the camp is not much, but it will improve over time, and with the help of our allies, a golden future lies ahead of us. Also, Hiroaki has volunteered to look after Suri's Refuge. In his old job he learned many skills that will come in handy, and I would be a fool not to take his aid. There was one more thing I wanted to do before we attack the last few cities in the desert. It is something that we talked about before. Tengu's Vault, the prison of the tyrant. On the inside, many potential allies that we could make. Since the army possesses more than enough manpower, I rallied everyone to strike the target quickly and free more people. As we arrived at the gates, we didn't give the guards a chance to form up. We instantly crushed through their defense and entered the prison. We looked through a few cages, freed many more slaves, and some of the more vile bandits were brought to the Flotsam Ninjas for imprisonment. And then, a cage. A man on the inside that barely fit behind those bars. Unable to speak, he was rampaging, nearly breaking out. Suddenly, Abrarius came up to him. They communicated in some way, and then he came down. This man's name is Ogre, a fierce warrior and a mysterious one at that, coming from the south of the unwanted lands, highly aggressive and unable to talk. The Empire used a whole battalion of soldiers to catch this individual. On some notes that we found, it was mentioned that under no circumstances should he be left free. After Abrarius was done communicating, he opened his cage and the ogress stepped out, nodding in my direction. Was it a sign of approval? Whatever might be the case, it seems he is now following us. I don't know how to feel about that. Having not taken any casualties, Mohi suggested that we keep pushing and strike the next city instantly. Since we are in high spirits now, this might not be such a bad idea. We moved towards the city of Bark, and we set up a camp and waited for tomorrow morning. No noble will be safe from our wrath. The Empire is weak. We are crushing their cities one after the other. There is only one left in the Great Desert, the main capital, the city called Heft. Here, the corrupt leader Emperor Tengu reigns over his crumbling united cities. While the Empire is getting weaker every day, Suri's refuge is blossoming. With Hiroaki governing over the city, I see a bright future ahead of it. It also seems that Laru and Hiroaki get along well. Maybe I'll find a job where they can work together. Murasaki has meanwhile started a training of some elite soldiers. He is calling them Sandukar, extremely efficient and dangerous. The training of these Sandukar will be hard, and it will take some time. But when we can use this force, we will be unstoppable. After the destruction of Tengu's vault, Joseph came closer to finding the Nexus. While I still not fully understand what it is, I know that it is important for Joseph, and it could also help us. Moe has meanwhile been on a quest to hire some more mercenaries for our cause. If we attack Heft, I want to make sure we have enough manpower. I told Nibble to prepare the soldiers for tomorrow's assault. Taking down the Empire is a hard task, yet, after Tengu's fall, there are only a few more nobles left to the south. Tonight, I am not sure if I will be able to find any kind of sleep. My mind is set on a target that I thought was unreachable. Oh, Suri, if you just could see what we have achieved. Emperor Tengu was brought to justice. Yet, the Empire is still alive here in the Great Desert. After the fall of Tengu, a lesser noble named Ota took his place and is now claiming the rule over this land. Hiroaki has informed me that he is the last standing noble we have to take out to get control over the desert. While I'm confident that we can deal with Ota, another threat has presented itself. They call themselves the Dominion. While they are not hostile towards us at the moment, according to Hiroaki's records, this Dominion is an overseas empire that wants to take a foothold on our shores. While Tengu was trading slaves with them before, they now took the opportunity after his fall. I cannot accept this. Another corrupted empire? This will not stand. I have to deal with them accordingly, but first I need to get rid of the nobles. Joseph has meanwhile informed me that Igor is under some sort of control linked to the Nexus. While this is beyond the things that I can comprehend, I know it has become crucial that we find this Nexus. Hopefully, we will be able to free Igor from this control, and maybe he will even switch sides. It also seems that the shinobi thieves know more about the whereabouts of the Nexus. I've now appointed Nibble as the general of the main army. His combat knowledge makes him a great leader, and that is exactly what we need right now. After patching up the wounds and restocking, It is now time to head out for another battle. It seems overall victory is still far away, but the sands will not stop until this land is freed. The Dominion, a new curse that is plaguing our land. We defeated Ota, only to be met by the daimyos of this foreign faction. Supported by their overseas supplies, these daimyos are a threat that will be harder to deal with than the Empire. But we still have time. They have taken over Heft and are preparing to gain a foothold on this land. If we strike them now, we can not only push them back into the seas, we can also use their supplies and fortify our Sand Kingdom and Suri's refuge. With Hiroaki's government skill and Joseph's construction knowledge, we can create a kingdom that is looking out for everyone. And not only that, we can use the weapons of the Dominion for our Sandukar. Speaking about Joseph, he was also able to remove the device that was planted into Igor, and after removing it, Igor seemed to have lost many functions. According to Joseph, he is slowly regaining them, but when the word Tengu is spoken, Igor enrages. Joseph has tasked Prophet to look after him and help him find to his old self. Since Prophet's memories got restored, it should be an easy task for him. Hiroaki has also suggested that we give Igor a different name. That is why they started to call him Repent. While everyone has been giving it their best, I called in Mirosaki and Nibble. Even though Mirosaki is currently training the Sandukar, I do need him in this assault against the Dominion. His battle skills and tactics are too valuable. I wanna cut off the dragon's head before he awakens. From the information of the shinobi thieves, we gathered that their troops have better armor, higher skill, and are better prepared than the United Cities. So we can't just storm in. We have to play it safe and destroy them bit by bit. Yet it doesn't make sense, neither to me nor the others. How can they raise an army so quickly and take over Heft? Hiroaki has been stressed out about this, and I kind of have the feeling that he's blaming himself for something. Thankfully, Laru is by his side and supports him. And for us, it is back to war. The army is ready. The desert has to be freed. I will make sure of that. The daimyos have spoken about an island where their leader resides. Together with Hiroaki, Mirosaki and Nibble, we looked upon the documents from Heft. After finding out about the location, I didn't waste any more time and sent out Slink and Cyberbeep to the so-called Island of None. A few days went by. In those days we were preparing the army and waiting for the return of our scouts. And when they finally came home, the information they brought us could not have been more devastating. The Shogun has settled on this island, and has transformed it into a huge fortress. Many islands connecting each other with lots of defense on the way to his throne. By all means, how can we break through this? A full-on assault will not help us this time, and we need the help of the Sandukar to break through. I tasked Mirosaki to prepare them for the first large assault. While he was doing that, we are going to weaken the outer defense of the Dominion and cut off their supply routes. Furthermore, Joseph has informed me that he has transformed his data onto a memory core. This is just in case if he passes away. He has also locked himself in after that. I don't know what he is doing, but he was mumbling something about being close to the whereabouts of the Nexus. After the death of Anvil, things have become complicated. We've been victorious for such a long time that we nearly forgot how it feels to lose a close friend. But it will not be in vain. The Dominion will pay for what they have done. The Sands are strong, and they know no mercy. The throne of the Shogun is within our reach. Only one line of defense is left until we can breach his bastion. But to break the last line, we need more manpower. While we were breaching through their gates, we were able to capture an important daimyo, who finally let out that the Dominion were using Joseph's Nexus to build this fortress. If it really is that powerful, the Nexus could help the Sands to better themselves in any way. While we were discussing the potential of the Nexus, we heard the sound of a marching army. As we turned around, we saw Mirosaki approaching with the Sandukar. But not only the Sandukar joined in, many Sand Rebels also wanted to join this fight. I greeted Mirosaki with open arms. With this army, we will be able to take down the Shogun. We took over the residing buildings and set up a temporary camp. I then called to my generals and we had a last discussion about our tactics. When the sun rises, the empire of the Shogun will fall, and the great desert will be free. The Shogun has fallen, and the Dominion is crumbling without leadership. Today the Sands have destroyed the oppressor that tried to take over the desert. But while we succeeded in defeating the Dominion, many lives have been lost. The Sandukar and many Sand Rebels have fallen for our cause, and I won't let them rot on the battlefield. We brought them back near Suri's refuge and gave them a proper burial. While I moan after these brave warriors, the fact that we have lost Cyberbeep makes me extremely sad. This little fellow has followed me since the beginning of my journey, and he has saved my life countless times. For him to be gone, I cannot imagine how it will be. So much pain, so much suffering. The day I broke out of my prison and until Suri's death and the fall of the Empire. And now the defeat of the Shogun. I am growing tired of all of this fighting. It is wearing me down. But while there is victory in reach, we are still not done. The nobles of the Empire are still controlling a part of the south, and the reavers have been gaining more land. Maui has already constructed a battle plan to infiltrate the Ark. I will let him carry out an attack with some of our soldiers. But Maui has also started to train a small squad that he calls Black Marauders. They shall be more of an offensive force to quickly strike our enemies. But more importantly, Joseph has finally found the Nexus. Indeed, the Dominion used it to create their bastion, but not to its full potential. With Joseph being reconnected to the Nexus, it was time to use it to rebuild Suri's refuge. In only a few weeks, we managed to remodel the whole city quite a bit. With the growth of Suri's refuge, the hidden sands become more of a chore than anything else. Instead of focusing on 2 places, it will be easier to just use Suri's refuge as our base of operation. And furthermore, we will lay down the name of Sands of Hate, and now be formally known as the Sand Kingdom. There are so many things to do, and I can't waste any more time. My people are counting on me. I'm doing this for you, Suri. Me getting a title like king or emperor? I have to think about that. But Hiroaki suggested that the title as a leader of an uprising nation is necessary. But Hiroaki warned me I should not use any titles from our former oppressors, and he gave me a few ones that I can live with. While it will be important to use a title, this is not the matter of today. Today I have some other things to do. First off, we discussed what we should do with the Hidden Sands. While it stems clear that we will not use it as our main base of operation, it clearly can hold some other values. If we reform it, it can become an outpost that we could use to distribute resources or reform the armies. I take Joseph's idea and will put it to good use. After dismissing my generals, Mirosaki came up to me. Recently I noticed that he's been out quite a lot, visiting Maul, the leader of the Flotsam ninjas. It is good that they keep up an active relation, and who knows, maybe we can strengthen our bonds, probably with marriage. But this is besides the point. Mirosaki has suggested that we create another city in Sham. It could be a central point, something that could benefit us, and I agree with his idea. We just need a bit more time and the resources to get this operation started. After Moe's successful return, the Reavers were no more. While this led us to more security, there was something still up my list. The Buckmaster. Since a long time I promised Abrarius that we would tackle him, and I am a man of my word. But we cannot send out the whole army. There's to be a small-sized squad that will sneak through Eric and take out the Buckmaster. I also want to make sure they get some extra training before venturing into this hellhole. While he can choose who he takes with him, I hinted that he should take Corvax. This man was so eager to go back into action, he will be a valuable asset in this mission. I then sent out Abrarius to rally his companions and train for the moment in Eric. Then I looked back on the documents at hand. Leading a nation will be tough, but I am not alone in this. The Bugmaster joining our side? In what kind of scenario have I stumbled in now? Abrarius somehow calmed him down. They had a conversation in a language I've never heard before, and after that, Abrarius gave him back his weapon and armor. I was hesitant about this at first, but it seems obvious that he bears no hatred towards us. As long as he is with Abrarius, he is calm and collected. The Bugmaster is a strange figure. I allowed Abrarius that the Bugmaster can join us, but I also want to make sure he's watching over him. If something happens and the Bugmaster snaps, Abrarius will take the blame for this. While I was staring at the Bugmaster, a tap on my shoulder brought me back to reality. It was Hiroaki who smiled at me, with Joseph close behind him. We wrapped up things and met in Hiroaki's office, where he gave me the report for a new future city that shall be built in Shem. Hiroaki heavily relied on using our allies to establish a trade route to this new city. I agreed with his views on this and gave him the order to send out the messages to our allies. After we finished this matter, Joseph came back to the topic about the Nexus. He wants to sail towards the old library and reclaim what is still lingering in there. I gave him my seal of approval, but I reminded Joseph that we have to get rid of the Southern nobles first. Meanwhile, Nibble's mood has not been good. He was insulted that he wasn't allowed to join the assault against the Bugmaster. But as my general, I can't just send him off and leave our soldiers without a leader. Yet, I know that the next task I will give him will lighten his mood. Tomorrow, it is time to take our main army and move towards the Southern nobles. It is finally time. We have to end the charade of the Empire and let the new kingdom blossom over this world. So, this is the end. The end of the United Cities. I don't even know what to write. It is a feeling of joy and happiness, yet it is still hard to comprehend. For hundreds of days we kept the rebellion going, starting from nothing. And now, I rule over the Sand Kingdom, one of the strongest factions in the Great Desert. And while many enemies have been dealt with, there are still some out there. Suri, we finally did it. We now have a place we can call home again. I wish you could see this. In your and our family's name, I will keep working on this kingdom. Hiroaki has formally crowned me as Sin the Usurper. Well, I guess this is a fitting title after all. And now, after the fall of the Empire, it is time to enlarge our borders. We need to establish trade routes, open farms, and create a strong military. And with the help of my friends, I feel confident that we can finally pull this off. So what can I say? It was a long journey, but it is time now to remove this pen and start working with my own hands. Hello to whoever might find this diary. If you did, you're probably expecting an entry from Sin here. I'm going to tell you everything what had happened over the past 20 years. Yes, you heard right. It has been 20 years since the last entry into this diary. I mean, if you live in the current time, you probably have heard about the Sand Kingdom, right? You know, one of the strongest factions to ever live. But I should get to the point, right? I mean, Joseph has taught me a lot and told me about the past. So I guess I owe you an explanation. First off, I am the son of Sin. My name is Saren. About 20 years ago, my father, together with the Sand Kingdom, defeated the last nobles and so destroyed the United Cities. For them, it was now time to secure their land and enlarge the Sand Kingdom. After months of hard work, the former rebellion built the main capital in Shem. The city's name is Sandy Bottom, but I am sure you already are familiar with the city. Alongside Suri's refuge, this city is extremely important for the trade and the peace between the different factions. While Hiraki was governing over Suri's refuge, Handy would take the place as the governor of Sandy Bottom. In this time of blossom, my father and my mother got really close. In case you're wondering, my mother's name is Slink. She and my father have been together since the start of the rebellion. But if you've been following this diary, you already know that. Soon after I was born, I was told that my parents were happy as a bone dog pup, as Joseph was put it. Alongside my birth, another child was born. Her name? Vera, the child of Mirosaki and Maul. And without a doubt, the person I would never want to lose. But yes, I know what is on your mind. You are wondering why Sin is not continuing this diary. Well, the grief still sits deep. My father Sin was murdered, alongside his friend Mirosaki. You know, when they defeated the nobles, Mohi and Ungern vanished. And a few months later, they came back with an army. Mohi and his black marauders started to attack the cities and take control over some of them, ruling them with an iron fist. Brutality was at its peak, and the people were afraid of this new tyrant. Stricken by rage, Muti set off towards their hideout. He wanted to talk with Mohi, but they ended up finding his dead body, shot with his own crossbow bolts, and a letter from Mohi that states that he has no interest in diplomacy. To say that Joseph was angry would have been an understatement. My father knew how he had to act, so this is what they did. He and Mirosaki forged a plan to take out Mohi and Ungern, but yet it would never come to this. As my father and Mirosaki went to our allies for more troops, they were deceived. The Narcos disciples. Together with Mohi, they laid out a trap. I heard stories that my father and Mirosaki took out 100 men on their own, but eventually they were cut down. The news of their death still seems so fresh, even though it has been years at this point. But I will not falter. My father had a goal, and I will reach for it. His legacy will live on inside of me. After Mohi seized some cities, he established the Kenshi, a council of 9 Southern Hiver generals. Well, now there are only 3 left. Over the last years we pushed back Mohi's black marauders farther and farther, and the only city that is left now is Shark. But it's hard to break through it, as the black marauders fight like wild animals. The stone rats and the red sabers also have been dealt with. They joined Mohi after the takeover of Shark, and this betrayal did not stand for a long time. But it won't take long before I have the Hiver's head. While Nibble is leading the main army, Corvix has also turned out to be an outstanding commander, with him controlling a large squad of sharpshooters. Together, these two are unstoppable on the battlefield. I wish we could have used the power of Abrarius and the Buckmaster, but one day they vanished. I heard stories about him being an ancient. I don't really know much about this, and the message he left was signed with Ares and not Abrarius. Rumors have it that they have left this planet, but this would not be possible, right? Anyways, the world is still as cruel as ever, and while I might have lost my father, I still have many friends to support me. Hiroaki and Joseph are good teachers, and I get along well with Hiroaki's and Laru's children. I see them as my own family. I think I will continue this diary. I see it as my legacy now. I do wish you farewell, and until the next entry, I still have many things to do and many things to plan. I just hope that my father Sin and my aunt Suri are together in heaven. Hello, my fellow Kenshi players, and welcome back to the end of the Sands of Hate, a Slave Rebellion. With nearly 40 episodes in cut content, this is probably my longest running series. But every good things have to come to an end. I do hope you enjoyed the storytelling and everything, and I want to say thank you for all the amazing people who have been writing comments, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and just been following me around and supporting the stuff that I do. The next series is in the works. I just don't know when I will drop it, but I want to do it a bit different. I also want to get a new shader. I think that the Tsuki version 3 shader isn't that perfect, but that's just my personal opinion. So I want to get a different one. Well, like I said, the next series will be about the Sovereign Hive. I'm not going to spoil what it's actually about. Just keep an eye out over the next few weeks, the series will drop. I just want to apologize for not uploading all too much lately. First off, I've been sick, now I've been doing better again, but real life has been really holding me down at the moment. There are so many things happening right now, but I promise you, whenever I have time, I will go into YouTube and do some stuff here. I also promise you guys that I'm going to do a few more live streams before I start the next series. Maybe we can even finish the Star Wars Kenshi mod on the live stream before we start the next series. And let's not forget, there's also the Bannerlord series that is running, which I still want to continue. So, maybe I'm going to push the release a few weeks back. And then, once everything is settled in a little bit, we're going to drop the series. Anyways, guys, I want to say thank you for watching again, and I do hope I see you in the next one. Goodbye.